You know what? I think I'm finally going to weigh in on the TYT Jimmy Dore controversy that has been boiling over for weeks now. Uh, I find it pretty funny and entertaining as someone who's not on the left to watch this. Um, and I will admit I wouldn't call myself a loyal Jimmy Dore viewer, but I have subscribed to Jimmy for a long time because I like a lot of his guests, and so when I see it, it's kind of like with Rogan. I'll watch Rogan if he has somebody on who I like already, and it's kind of the same thing with Jimmy. Although I also like his parody call videos that he puts out with folks like there was a great one a couple weeks ago with Mitt Romney. Where it was, it's an impersonator calling in as Mitt Romney into the show, and they're just funny little skits. So that's your disclaimer. I am, I guess, what they would call one of Jimmy's right-wing troll viewers, and I guess because of that, I've been tempted not to weigh in on this because, well, for those of you who don't know, the controversy sort of goes back to something that Jank and Anna of the Young Turks said about the great buzzsaw Aaron Mattei. Now, Aaron Mattei is someone who I was a fan of, long independent of the Jimmy Dore show. Aaron Mattei has appeared frequently on the Scott Horton show, which I listened to almost constantly throughout college because it was the kind of podcast I could get away with listening to because it didn't, Scott had a lot of left-wing people on his show. And so I could listen to it at college without anybody walking by and thinking, hey, you're listening to the wrong thing. The kind of stuff that comes out of the mouth of people like Aaron Mattei, Glenn Greenwald, or Matt Taibbi is pretty safe for most college campuses. And so getting back to the Young Turks, Anna decided to spout some totally irrational establishment talking point about Aaron loving dictators and denying genocide, which, it's the kind of crap I've heard so many times in my time, I guess, operating in the online anti-war movement. And by that I mean just listening to people who are against the current wars that nobody ever talks about on TV. If you ever criticize the wars that were never approved by Congress and that nobody was ever asked about and that nobody ever talks about, they just smear you as someone who loves dictators. Well, why would you question America's war in Syria unless you love Assad? Why would you question the fake gas attack in Syria, which is totally irrational on its face? Like, why would Assad do that, considering the Syrian Red Line? But then even looking at the evidence, totally appears to not be real in that the official narrative that we were given on the attack has completely fallen apart. We've got the OPCW leaks, and nobody really talks much about that. And if you do talk about that, you get smeared as some Assad toady, to borrow a phrase from what's her name from the New York Times. Barry Weiss, that Zionist friend of the intellectual dark web who did that really weird write-up and took those really all right. Well, she didn't take the pictures, but I mean the pictures accompanying the piece were just these really weird images of like the Weinstein brothers standing behind a bush with like the light shining up from them. It was at nighttime. It was bizarre. So getting back to the smears of TYT against Aaron Mattei, I instantly, when I hear someone make an accusation like that, especially when they're as emotional and irrational as Anna Kasparian was in that clip, I mean, she was jumping out, out from behind her desk. Jank had to hold her back. It looked like she was going to assault the camera, and she was giving it the finger at the very least when she sort of resigned herself to sitting at her desk. And so while I've never been a fan of TYT, I didn't know necessarily if they were honest brokers or not. I wasn't sure how genuine they were, but when you see someone regurgitate that kind of a gross smear about a good person like Aaron Mattei, someone who I know for a fact is a good person, to me, that told me all I ever needed to know about the Young Turks. And again, I never watched the Young Turks because I'm not a lefty. I don't like, the TYT was always just, the standard lefty YouTube show. And I had no interest in that. Much in the same way that, I think your average lefty would have no interest in, just watching boilerplate Sean Hannity. I mean, there's not much to be gained there. And you might say, well, it's unfair to compare them to, Sean Hannity, who is just such a blatant, talking points regurgitator. But in the era of Russiagate, I really have found, I find it hard to distinguish between the Young Turks and the likes of Rachel Maddow, who is explicitly a Democrat version of Sean Hannity. I mean, hell, Rachel Maddow was a protege of Roger Ailes, I believe. I think they had a close relationship. I mean, I believe Ailes manufactured Rachel Maddow in the same way he manufactured Sean Hannity, their characters. And TYT seems to have moved in a direction to try and absorb some of that, MSNBC, Roger Ailes type of audience. So with that said, what does that have to do with Jimmy Dore, and why am I talking about it today? Because all this is stuff that's happened in the past. Well, this turned into a feud between TYT and Jimmy Dore because Jimmy had Aaron Matei on to, defend him, and for Aaron to defend himself against these smears. And they, I think very fairly, tore TYT apart over this issue. And I think it was probably very embarrassing for the Young Turks. It was not looking good for them because there was, in that particular instance, there was very little gray area. Cenk and Anna were spouting establishment talking points, and Aaron was just doing honest journalism. It was not a hard thing, that's something that, I'm not a lefty. I don't agree with the Jimmy Dore audience or the TYT audience or the hosts on most political issues, but in terms of just basic facts and truth, when it's that black and white, I can pick a side and see who's right and who's wrong. And the fact is that they were wrong and they were beaten badly. Now, what I think is proving to be what at first seemed like a very dumb strategy, but as time goes on, a very smart strategy. TYT responded to this by having Anna, one of the co-hosts, try and blackmail Jimmy with a Me Too allegation. And what that did, even though I don't think that the Me Too allegation holds much water, what it did was it shifted the focus of this feud from substantial, real important issues, namely the war in Syria, into personal matters. And again, TYT did this. They shifted this from a pure policy discussion to a personal discussion. And that was smart, because they were losing. There was no way for them to win the policy battle. And so now I was checking Twitter this morning, and Cenk was trending. And I thought, oh dear, what's going on now? And so I click on this, and I'm scrolling through. And if I'm just an ordinary person who's not following us, not watching all these videos about it, just from reading what the discussion has devolved into now, it's all sounds very personal, and it sounds like drama, And Jimmy got mad at Kyle Kulinski, the Secular Talk guy. Although I guess he doesn't call himself Secular Talk anymore. Again, another person I've never been a fan of, and I'm not fond of. I believe he was also the guy who made that dumb tweet when he was flying over, I think, Colorado or something, and he took a picture out the window of his plane, and he said, hey, look at all these cool squares on the ground. I wonder what does that. And it's like, you idiot, those are fields. You're looking at a farm. But anyway, he waded into all this, and he said, I didn't want to get involved because of a bunch of drama. And Jimmy essentially made a video getting mad at Kyle Kulinski because, he was saying, hey, this is just drama, and saying, no, this is a serious issue. Oh, and also you omitted the fact that I was being blackmailed. But again, I think that in doing so, in getting mad over Kulinski boiling this down to, oh, it's just drama, in and of itself, was quite dramatic and created drama. And so I think at this point, I think that there was a tipping point when Jimmy decided to do the, hey, let's analyze the Kyle Kulinski, analysis of the situation. It devolved into drama. Because before, even though you had Cenk and Anna trying to throw their drama into it from the beginning, I mean, it was very dramatic the way that Cenk and Anna began this situation, by Anna trying to jump up and down, in her chair and flip the camera off and shout about, how Aaron Matei is just a puppet of dictators and is paid for by the Russians, and Cenk talking about how, oh, gee, I hope that Russian blanket sure feels warm, Aaron. But Jimmy and Aaron kept it very calm and rational. But as this is going on, it's becoming much more personal, and I think that they're starting to lose the optics war. That's what I saw. When I opened Twitter today, I looked at what was being discussed, and I said, this is not productive. And you know what? Kulinski came out, and he made it, and I haven't watched it, and I don't think I will watch it, probably, because I don't care enough. He made a video essentially trying to concede some of the criticisms that Jimmy Dore and Aaron Matei made about him. Specifically, the whole, hey, I omitted the blackmail thing, which seems really dishonest, and I don't know what he has to say for himself on that. But, the guy seems to be trying to make some concessions. And Jimmy comes in with a very, sort of nasty and snarky reply, essentially giving the guy no credit. So it's like, well, if you don't want this to be drama, show some magnanimity. Because even though I genuinely believe that Jimmy Dore just wants, his heart's in the right place, I think, on this issue. Because he talks about very important, very real issues that don't really get discussed anywhere other than, like the Scott Horton show, which is why I started listening to Jimmy Dore. Because it's like, hey, this is kind of like, this is sort of a lighter, fluffier Scott Horton show, because there's jokes thrown in. Like Scott Horton show, it's very hard to take a lot of it at a time because it's very depressing. There's not a ton of good news that comes out of the Scott Horton show. So anyway, I think that this was unwise of Jimmy, and I understand that that's his personality. He's a fiery guy, and that's what makes him so effective. Because he said when he's right, he says things in a very compelling way, and he doesn't back down, which is a very good trait to have when you have very unpopular opinions. But again, in this kind of a situation, I don't think optically it's productive for him to continue to be so aggressive in his defense. Hey, sure, you still might have some problems with what this Kulinski guy is saying about you, but he conceded some points to you, and so give him a pat on the back for that. And then try and shift the focus back towards, use this as an opportunity to promote the original idea that that you were concerned about, which was the Duma investigation, the war in Syria, the neo-McCarthyism of the Russiagate folks. Don't get so bogged down in trying to demand loyalty of your friends. Now, I guess this is hard for me because I don't have any. There's personal relationships tied up in this stuff. I have no stake in any of that, and so I can look at that and say, okay, who cares if somebody is if you feel like you're still being misrepresented by whoever, just try and shift the focus back to what the real issue is. So again, just to reiterate, I'm not saying that Jimmy's criticisms are at all invalid. I've pretty much been on his side 100% in terms of the points. All I disagree with a little bit here is the strategy, because I feel like, again, I'm not necessarily blaming him. What I'm saying is the fact is that the conversation is shifting in an unproductive direction. And so in order to maximize, because you're getting a lot of exposure from all this, try and shift the conversation back towards what is most productive. Don't fall for TYT's trap here that they were obviously trying to shift this into be all 100% personal matters. As far as I'm concerned, Jimmy told his story, his side of the story about the news skirt incident, which was pretty funny, to be honest. And that should be it. So I hope that what I fear, what I see happening here, does not continue. And I guess I'll wait to see what Jimmy's response to this is going to be. I assume he's going to have Aaron Matei on again, and they're going to do some substantive discussion about all this. Which every time they do that, to me, it's very productive. But the Twitter stuff is becoming a little too dramatic. So, with that said, I'm going to leave that there for today. Hopefully I don't get ratioed like Kyle Kulinski. But until then, I'll see you folks tomorrow.